Thank you.
Oh. Okay, call the meeting to order. This is the Genoa Township Board of Zoning Appeals. The date is October 26, 2021. It is 7:01 p.m. and we are meeting at the Genoa Township Hall at 5111 South Old 3C Highway in Westerville, 43082. We have two agenda items tonight, BZA case 2021-11, Michelle and Sam Rawl. I promise I will mispronounce that. Area variance, first meeting, BZA case 2021-12, Matthew and Rachel Hellerman, area variance, first meeting. We have staff present, Susan Dorch, Deputy Zoning Inspector, and we also have Paul Schaefer. Joe Schaefer. I apologize, Joe. Our zoning officer. And I will call the roll at this time. Mr. Phillips.
Here.
Ms. Driscoll.
Here.
Ms. Yu is absent. Mr. Boone.
Here.
Mr. Hanson.
Here.
And Mr. Carlson, our newest member, is here in the audience tonight, our newest alternate. And I just want to read this into the record. As is the adopted policy of the Board of Zoning Appeals, all applicants will be granted an opportunity to make their formal presentation. The audience will then be granted an opportunity to comment, followed by questions from the board. This policy was adopted by the Board of Zoning Appeals to provide for the orderly discussion of business scheduled for consideration. The chairperson may limit repetitive debate. The first item on the agenda tonight is to review the meeting minutes of September 28, 2021. I'll give you a moment to do that. I know there is one small revision, and otherwise I didn't see anything else, but go ahead and take a peek at them. But they do, you're right, though. They print it out than they do online. Okay.
I make a motion to approve.
Okay. With that, I assume is with the revision. The revision is back on the last page in the adjournment section where it says 8:0 instead of 8:00 p.m. So make that. I'll make that small amendment in the permanent record here, and with that revision. Ms. Driscoll has made the motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, meeting minutes are approved, and we will open the first public hearing at 7:03 p.m. And I will read the legal notice into the record. And prior to doing that, all those that wish to speak on the first case, which is, let's see, what's the case number? BZA case 2021-11. So if you'd all stand, raise your right hand, and to be sworn in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Be seated, and I'll read the legal notice into the record. Michelle and Sam, is it Rawl? Rahi. Oh, okay. Boy, I wasn't even close. Here. Requesting approval of a variance to allow construction of a new single-family residence to encroach 25 feet into the required 75-foot yard setback from the eastern right-of-way at 3527 Worthington Road, Galena, Ohio, 43021, currently zoned rural residential, RR, and this is BZA case 2021-11. Okay, so the first, the legal notice for this hearing was printed and published on October 12th, 2021 in the Delaware Gazette and posted at the Genoa Township Hall on October 7th, 2021. An attempt to mail notice of this hearing to property owners contiguous to and across the street from the subject property was also made and will also enter into the record exhibits A through D, which include the legal notice, the sign-in sheet, application, and the staff report. And we will begin with staff for their report.
Thanks, Mark. So the property is located at 3527 Worthington Road, and it's a 5.9 acre piece of property. It's zoned rural residential. Some history of the property. It is currently vacant. In 2003, the zoning department issued a permit for the construction of a new single-family residence. Due to a surveying error, a portion of the foundation was constructed within the ODOT right-of-way off of State Route 3. Violations were issued by the township and the Delaware County Building Department. Work on the structure was discontinued, and the basement foundation remained. Due to safety issues, Delaware County and Genoa Township pursued removal of the dangerous conditions, and on March 2005, the foundation was filled in and that issue was resolved. Since that time, revisions have been made to the Genoa Township zoning resolution that were adopted November 12th, 2003, and they went into effect December 12th of that same year. And it changed the front yard setback, the way it was measured. Previously, it was measured from the property line, and it changed it so that it was measured now from the road right-of-way line. In a lot of cases, that's one and the same. The front property line and the road right-of-way line are the same. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes properties will, especially in the rural residential districts, will run to the middle of the road. In this case, this property has 3 setbacks, front setbacks, one off Worthington Road, one off Plum Road, and one off State Route 3. So the previous house, when it was permitted, the setback was off the property line. Now the setback is off the road right-of-way line.
What?
So,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'll hold my question.
The Development and Zoning Department received an application for a new single-family house on September 16th. And on that same day, we emailed the builder to let them know that the measurement from the rear of the house to the State Route 3 right-of-way did not meet the zoning resolution. It was showing at 50 foot and it needed to be 75 feet. So they indicated that they would contact the homeowners, and then subsequently they said they were going to apply for the variance, and we received that application on September the 29th. So as I mentioned, the subject lot is a unique lot. It has 3 front yards and 1 side yard. Typically, your normal lot will have a front, a rear, and 2 sides. Corner lots have 2 fronts and 2 sides, and this one has 3 front yards. And so I already said how we measure the front setbacks now from the right-of-way line. We did give a copy of the application to police, fire, and maintenance. The fire marshal and the police department had no comments or concerns. No other responses were received. And I did receive one phone call from a resident who saw the sign driving by the property. They weren't an adjacent resident, and they were just kind of curious to what the application was and hoping that it wasn't commercial.
Oh.
Other than that, I'm not aware of anyone asking about the application.
Okay. Do we have, I'm trying to, do we have a map of where the right-of-way ends and the property line begins, or anything that can clarify that? Because
I
I'm,
think it's shown on their site plan and their application.
oh, is that in here? Because I see 3, and then
I think Joe has it pulled up on the screen too. So that dashed line is the right-of-way line.
Ah, okay. Oh, okay, oh, yeah, right where it says RW. Got it, okay. All right. So the right-of-way actually goes significantly into the property.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Wow.
Do we know how far that is, Susan? The right-of-way line from the property line?
You were gonna ask me.
No, just ask, you don't know offhand, that's okay. I was just looking at it, thought it was probably on there and I missed it.
What's the CO? Center line, right?
Oh, yeah, probably. And then, oh, I see.
I think
then
it's
this-
about 148 feet
Okay, 148.
to the center line of State Route 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
To the right of way.
That's the width of the right-of-way.
Okay. The right-of-way is 148, which is measured from the center line to the, or the right-of-way to the center line is 148. Okay. Gotcha. Okay, now I understand. Okay, let's hear from the applicant. And you can go to the podium or have a seat at the table, and either one.
Can I be able to just point something out on the map for a quick moment?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, fantastic. Oh, or I can
Oh,
be
yeah.
loud. I'm Italian, I can be very loud.
Yeah.
Okay.
The challenge is that we're being recorded, so you have to
absolutely.
remember that.
Okay, not a problem.
Be able to hear.
All right, so what I wanted to show you, so obviously we have almost 6 acres here, and this is our building envelope. So if I draw your attention here, this is the house, this is the garage side, it faces this direction. This is the side of the house as we had it drawn, with not having the 75 feet that we should have had. If we bring it in 25 feet, and keep in mind, this is only 39 feet here, that's the width of the house. So if we bring in the 25 feet, we're taking it down from the 39. So it cuts right into there, which would give you, as I mentioned in my notes, about enough space for a modular trailer. In all actuality, which is not what we want to put in Galena, obviously, on a corner property that everyone passes every single day in this very heavily populated area. But it's a very modest home. I have a picture of the home I can also show you. It's just a standard farmhouse ranch, nothing elegant, not like the houses down the way. They're the mansions that are being built, nothing like that. It's just a 39 feet on that side, but like I said, without that 25 feet, it takes it down. And we looked at positioning the house this direction, but when you get to the easement, there's a drop-off over here. And so we would have a problem with putting 24 feet of turnaround. So we would not be able to do that. And the reason that it makes more sense to pull the 25 from the Route 3 side versus the Worthington side is because this is only 116 already, then take off the 40 feet that is already going to be there for your right-of-way. And if they were to come in and take that like they are further down on Worthington, you're going to be making that much lower. And so then if you took 25 feet from there, bringing it forward, that driveway, you're putting the house almost to the front of the property line. And I have 6 children, 4 still at home. My youngest is 5. I'm really not trying to go closer to the road with having small children. And we've got all this space behind us. So that's one of the bigger things when we look at what's the best place to position this house and not change the dynamic of the neighborhood or impose on anybody or make it, like we're getting special treatment. Just we're trying to make it so it looks better. And again, you've got 6 acres and this little bitty 0.33 of a building envelope that we were not aware. Even when you pull up the tax information, it shows that we have 1.8 something of building envelope, which is so not true, and that's my next thing to tackle. But I just want to point that out, that you'll really only have 20-something feet of building space there on that side, and then the big drop-off leading down to your easement. So those are our biggest concerns with trying to make sure that we can get the house into that location. And again, it's just a simple 1-story ranch, but to be able to have that 24-foot, which is required, in, I think 24 or 26 feet of turnaround for your driveway, we would not be able to do it having a side load, and we wouldn't be able to put the house any other way. And I just have this, not a wonderful photo, but very basic, not anything spectacular, just very basic standard farmhouse. And I think everything else, just to save us time, everything else that I had wanted to say, I put into the documents in the packets that I prepared for you. But if there's any questions that you have for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
So that I'm clear, the 25 feet will come off of the State Route 3 side?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That actually technically would be the rear facing of our home, which prior to learning all of these new things about our unique property and 3 front yards, that was my backyard. So yes, that would be still considered in my mind, my backyard, yes, definitely Route 3. And there's quite a bit of feet between State Route 3, even getting up into that 75 feet or 50 feet. It's quite a distance from the back of the property. As you can see, that's probably the furthest, other than Plum. We only have 116 from Worthington, and then the next would be the Route 3, and then, of course, Plum would be the furthest, but that's a downhill slope all the way down and narrows as you go down.
Is it a wooded lot?
It is, so Route 3 has a tree line, the tree line property, but it is not. We had it brush hogged, and so it was high grass to the Plum side, but from about the midway going towards the, up the hill and over is all cleared out now. So
Susan,
it's
not
not.
to put you on the spot, but because that's a center line for a state route, do we have the authority to, let me put it this way, does the state have input on whether we grant a variance into what I would call their right-of-way?
Well, they're not asking to encroach into this right-of-way. They're just asking to reduce the required setback from 75 feet to
Okay.
50 feet.
But that won't encroach on
Correct. It won't
the
go
right-of-way?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Susan, when the original zoning permit was issued for this, the township was using the property line to measure the rear setback. So the rear setback wouldn't have applied on this permit, and they could have set the house right up against the right-of-way, right? So if
And
not
that's
for
what-
that,
I think that's what the original permit was, much closer, and then they had a little bit of surveying
so
issues,
if
and
not
it
for
was
the,
encroaching.
if not for the surveying error that happened, we could have a house that's 1 or 2 feet away from that right-of-way today, had it been built correctly.
Correct.
I have pictures of that home also. I think. Did I bring that with me or not? I might not have. It was a very oddly shaped house. No, I don't have it with me. I got it from Delaware County. It was a very, very oddly shaped house, and it was a 2-story, and they had it. There was definitely something not conducive to what our needs would be, but perhaps someone else. It was definitely, maybe back in 2003, it would have been okay for the neighborhood, but it's not something now.
But it was never built.
They started it, but there was a surveying problem, so they had to stop. But they had to get variances for the septic. That's how I was able to get all the information, because they actually had to get variances for the septic, where we were able to go in and just do it differently. And of course, it's more expensive, but we want it done right, and we don't have to, jump through hoops.
Are there adjacent property owners, houses adjacent to yours on any side?
So we have the whole corner, and then there's the easement, the What is the,
Utility easement?
what is it, what is it, drain. There's a drainage easement, there's like a 2 acres that someone owns that's not buildable, and they, I believe, live in California. And then on the other side of them is a home. And then across the street, there are three,
No, which street?
right on Worthington. I'm sorry, the only homes across from us are on Worthington. And if you go across Route 3 to the other side of Plum, I guess it would be, there's the corner where there's a farm there, I think it is. It has the buffalo or the cows that are there on the corner. But as far as across from us, there's one on the corner opposite, one straight across, and one that way. But on our side, there's just empty land and one house. And that's all that's next to us. You can actually see where the old foundation and everything, right there in the corner prop. Take my microphone. Have microphone will travel. Okay, let's see. Right in this area here. So that's the driveway that was already in existence, and the house just comes straight into this area here, right in there. And then that's that 2 acres, approximately 2 acres I was talking about that has the drainage easement, and then the other properties here.
That's not very wooded.
And just so I understand, this illustration that you've given,
Yes.
the green, that is if you built inside the easement,
Yes,
and that doesn't give you enough room for the driveway. Is that
correct.
correct? Okay.
Correct.
So where would you configure the driveway?
So it's a side load garage, and it would not give you 24 feet.
What you want, where would it be?
Where is it without the green? So it's a side load garage, so if you ignore the green here, so the side load garage would be here, but if the house doesn't fit there, this actually, even moving it down, it still doesn't fit. We'd have to somehow modify the house and take that off, I guess. I'm not sure. There's not really any other, I don't know if they can move it any other direction. This is what the engineer came up with, but there's not enough space here to put the 24 or 26, whatever it is that you need for the turnaround. There's not enough space there.
So your driveway would go straight?
Right into these, right, yeah, right down into the drainage easement,
The
yes.
zoning resolution requires that a side-load garage have a 24 feet of pavement coming
Yes.
out of the garage. So that's what she's referencing is
Exactly.
that requirement.
So this triangle that's on that illustration is basically the buildable area on the site.
Out of 6 acres, it's 0.33 of buildable area, and that's why since 2003, we are the 3rd person to own the property, I think. Yeah, maybe the 4th. Yeah, we're the 2nd one to actually attempt to try to go in and build, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
So the green area,
Yes.
how far back can you move it?
Where that red line in, that 25 feet, so that 75 would show where the actual is, if that's truly a front yard now. So that's the 75.
What I'm saying
Yes,
is,
sir.
how far back can you move it to not lose your driveway space? To minimize the amount of, that you're into the easement area?
Where it is right there is all the further you can move it, because the angle of that triangle, see how the front of the home, because it has dimension to the front of the,
No, what I'm saying,
oh, go ahead.
if I take this, and I slide it down this line, how far back can I move it to minimize the amount that you're into the easement.
If you leave it right now at the 75? Or if the 25
If
is
I slide it
available?
back,
Yeah, if we go somewhere between 50 and 75, this is mainly
If
his
you go
question.
between 50 and 75?
yeah. Can you go
Then-
like halfway and minimize how far you're into the setback?
So, okay, so I understand what you're asking me. Okay, so what we did, the engineer took it and he put it as far over as he could to the corner, and this still sticks out, so this does not completely fit. So the only way that it fits, see, this is the front of the home, and that's the front of the triangle there, so you can't go that direction any further because you have the same situation where you're coming across the front, so now I'm going into this 75 feet.
Correct, but if I take
Mm-hmm.
this and I slide the house this way at an angle,
Right?
can you move it to right about here and minimize the amount that you're
We've-
into the setback?
So we have tried, so we actually made a small replica of the property and did it, per the actual size and moved it every way possible. This was the only configuration, and in all honesty, in our building information with our builder, we had even put in there all the different ways that we could do it, and this was the only way, because of the bump out here, that this would fit on this property whatsoever. And somehow they even missed the 75, I think, because we all thought this was a rear property. This is the only way that it will configure to fit because of this ends up being 65 with the garage. This is 65 from here to here, and then this is a 4-foot bump out. This is 69 from here to here, and the length is 81. So, sorry, ma'am. If you eliminate the bump out, then if we take this off, then we change the face of the property, the house, because on this side here, it's a bump out then in, bump out then in, and the same thing here, so it changes the house. I mean, I guess it's something that, if we have to go ahead and change the face of the house, that's something that, could be done. That still doesn't account for what we do with this over here, but it doesn't allow for you to move this any further down. This is as far as it would go. So if you look here in this triangle and try to move this any other way, because that's 70 feet, if you were to measure the triangle, you're going to see that that's about what you have in most of this area. It's not going to go any further. If you try to move this, because this is right here is 70, close to 70 feet. It doesn't fit any other way. They tried moving it every direction that they possibly could.
Right, but I don't think you understand what I'm saying. If I take this and slide it at this angle, how far can I come back this way at an angle and stay within this parameter and still pick up your garage?
I guess we could try to find out to get the 26 feet, because we're already at how many, we have to be here, and then we'd have to go here to get the 24 feet. I guess we'd have to go back to the engineer and have him try to,
Because then you
to
would-
see how much.
You could slide it back and still minimize the amount of setback. You could probably reduce the setback.
And we're still gonna have to
for
eat into the 25
15 or 16
somewhere,
feet.
right? I mean, if we have to, if we're gonna nickel and dime and go 15 versus 25, if we wanna go that route. I mean, whatever you're willing to go with, to be able to get the house, have it be safe, to have the driveway, so we can have it be the 24 feet that's needed to not hopefully change the face of the house. We're flexible. So if it's 15 versus 25, if it's 15 and a half, whatever,
You understand what I'm saying?
totally do.
Dave, I don't. Are you saying that to shift the
No, I'm not
house?
saying to ship the house at all. I'm saying if you look at the way the house is sitting right there,
Yeah.
all the way out, and the way it is right there, if I shift it like halfway in the middle here.
I'm saying, are you turning it so that
I'm not
it's no
turning-
longer
I'm not turning it
parallel?
all. I'm just sliding it down this line. I'm sliding it at an angle to this other point. So if I go halfway, what is the distance into the setback if we minimize the amount of setback and still get her the space that she needs for a driveway?
So you're saying that there'd still be a variance needed and there'd
Yes,
still be a
but we minimize-
reduction to
we-
that
we-
75-foot, but you could possibly make it less than 25.
We can minimize the amount into the setback and still, she could still achieve the amount that she needs on her driveway. Does that make sense? understand?
Oh, I do, I absolutely do. You know, and the other thing is too, and I'm not dictating building plans, what it is, it's a relatively large footprint too. It's a 3,000 square foot house plus a garage that's, I don't know, 600 feet. So, I don't know,
Dave, I guess I'm still a little confused. If you move it up, like, I think I understand what you're saying, doesn't it move the whole right side further into the, I mean, she's right now she's at 51 feet at the top, up at the top of your finger, right there. And if you move everything up, doesn't it force it to the right, further
Forces
into
it to
the?
right, but it minimizes it. Let's say we go halfway and you're only in
Yeah,
here
right,
halfway.
that red line moves.
Instead of being in there 25 feet, you might only be in there 12 to 15. You reduce the amount that you're into the setback.
In other words, that red line would move.
Does that make sense, Mark?
Mark,
I'm not
just
following.
don't
but-
forget public comment.
I won't, thank you. I don't think we're quite there yet. though.
I thought maybe you guys were in
No,
board
no,
discussion.
no,
Okay.
not yet.
I guess, clear something else up, I guess, I'm just having a hard time grasping that. The 51 feet is 24 feet, right, into a 75-foot,
25 feet.
Yes. So
okay,
it's
25 feet.
30%-ish. Where's
Yeah, but if you move it up, doesn't slide it all into that 51 feet even more at that top end?
No,
No.
we're looking at the green.
On the drawing you're looking at, we're moving it to the left, or down.
Down.
Yeah, flip one more page, and then you'll be looking at it.
That made me
Oh,
very
yeah, with
confused.
the little green, yeah, with the little green one.
Right, so he's saying move
Move it
the
this way.
green that direction.
To the right,
Yes.
Yeah, right,
okay.
correct.
Split the difference essentially.
Right, basically move both
Mhm.
pictures into the center and.
Right, because the green is at 75, so if you move it parallel up, you're gonna go into the other front yard setback, but you've got room to go in there, so.
Well, she has to be careful moving, so you'd have to check the front too, because that 116 is from the middle of Worthington Road. It's
Right.
not, so you have, she's only 76 feet from the
Oh, that's the
right-of-way
middle of the
line
road.
from Worthington Road.
Ah,
So you would have to make sure it's, you know, staying behind that
Right.
line.
but you've got some room there because it's at, that would be at the, I mean, the farthest point seems to be at 116, so.
If you slide it down and angle it, keep in mind, that's 81 feet, and you've got on the other direction 70 feet. And at that midpoint where that line is at 116, that's 70 feet right there. So as you're sliding down, I understand where you're trying to save space and say it may not be the 25. I think the best you're gonna get is gonna be somewhere between 20 and 25. I think that it's not gonna be like we only need 10 feet or we only need 15. I think in the relativity, just in all the conversations we have with our builder and all the movement we've tried to do with the home, to get that 24 feet of parking pad, and I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that, I appreciate you trying to angle it. It's not, it won't conform, it looks like it should, but that isosceles triangle, it throws you off just because of the shape and because of the way that the L is for the house. But I know that we've positioned that so many different ways, and it does, it sticks out here 2 feet or there 2 feet, to Susan's point. Then we get into the right-of-ways on the other side, and that's the trouble that we have. And I don't want to be like the people in 2003 that are, their foundation was just that couple feet over, and oops, here we go. So again,
So you're
you know.
saying if you took the current house placement and moved it this way, it's not gonna move much just for the.
I'd be hard
space
pressed
of
to
the-
believe that you'd be anything under 20 feet, and that would be really, really pushing it. And I honestly believe that 25 was the true line.
Got it.
I totally believe that. We've messed around with this so many times, just because every time we think we have a plan, then we find out there's something different that we didn't see on the survey in the first
I mean,
place.
I just don't, I'm not seeing what is 24 feet
Mm-hmm.
on this side to know where your drop off is and everything.
And that red line is that 25, that's where the 25 comes in. So we put that to show you how much needs to, that's where the variance, that's where it cuts off. That's the true the true point right there is that red line. That's what we're losing, and we didn't realize that we didn't have that when we put the plan in place.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Mhm. No? Okay, we may or may not come back to you, just hang on. Anyone, member of the public that wishes to speak and has been sworn in, you can come to the podium regarding the the current application.
Thank
No
you.
one?
I'm going to leave, so I heard good news, so I'm a resident on
You
Palm
have
Road.
to come out and be sworn in.
Oh,
Oh, okay, you need to be sworn in? Oh, okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Go ahead, hey, name and address, please.
I'm Sandy Young, and I live at 7700 Plum Road.
Okay.
And I believe my grandparents were one of the first people that owned this land, so there have been 4. There used to be 11 acres. It's now 6. It had corn on it. So my grandpa was a farmer. And I was just concerned because has been a troubled spot for a long time because my pap, all he could do was put corn on it. And he lived in the farmhouse that's right across the street. So I was just making sure, one, I didn't call about commercial, but I was making sure that it was a home. And I welcome that because it actually keep a lot of the noise from 3C Highway coming up my way, because you will be a bumper. I think they're very welcome. And Worthington Galena is very, very busy, so I absolutely understand about her children. I've raised 3 on Plum, and it was scary when they were little. Now it's a nightmare, but because traffic has doubled. So I think the further she can stay away from that front where you're going to have her driveway, the better off her children are. And I've already told her, don't have pets because they'll get hit. So good luck and welcome to the neighborhood. Hope to see you. I'll knock on your door.
Thank you very much. Okay. So, at this point, should we go into discussion? I don't really have anything for
We've
the
had pretty lively discussion.
applicant. What's that?
We've had pretty lively discussion.
So far, yeah.
I think we've covered.
We've kind of, I don't know, I guess we'll just call this, we're gonna go into discussion. And if we have a question, we'll ask you, if we may not. And basically, it's an opportunity for us just to have an open discussion about the application. And like I said, we may or may not have questions, so. Okay, if we're gonna go into discussion, should we go through the criteria, Duncan versus Middlefield criteria while we're in it? So,
Yeah.
does somebody want to do that?
Is it just read this?
Well, I mean,
I'll tackle it if you want.
okay, yeah, go ahead, Mark. You and Dave seem like you're on top of this, so.
Dave, do you want it? I don't care.
It doesn't matter to me. If you want to do it, you can do it.
The board reviewed section 307.06 of the zoning resolution reflecting Duncan v. Middlefield as it pertains to the area variance requested by section 606.06 to allow for a 25-foot encroachment into the eastern front setback in a rural residential RR zoning district as follows. A, the property in question, again, please chime in, I'm going to say would not yield a reasonable return, and there cannot be beneficial use of the property without the variance. Discussion? comments,
Okay,
David?
yeah, let's discuss that point, because I think it's really important. I believe that, and I think Dave pointed out at least one, there could be a reasonable return without the approval of the variance. Because perhaps, and the applicant has stated though that they've looked at alternatives as far as moving the structure up and down, around, in and out of the variance. They could build a smaller house. They could move the house. I don't know, it kind of depends on what the hardship is if this is the house and if this is the structure, and we're comfortable with the structure, that while it probably can bring a reasonable return, if this is the structure that we're comfortable with, then I think this is probably the only place on the site that it can go. Would you agree with
I
that,
agree.
Dave? I mean, you're knowledgeable about these things. I think if we're looking for, and we haven't quite gotten there yet, but I think if we're looking for a unique piece of property, this has probably got to be one of the most unique in the township. We
Yeah.
used to see a lot on Sunbury because they're very unique. You see some in the older areas that are unique. And this is definitely unique. I'm actually, I'm kind of surprised somebody's actually trying to build on that site. I've been in the township 22 years, and I never imagined that with the influence of State Route 3 and Worthington Road and the construction that has gone on there in the past, and the traffic, that anybody'd be interested in building there. But that's just my opinion. People don't care. Obviously, they're finding a way to make this work. And I think that I see what they're trying to do, and I think otherwise, if you don't do this, and I'm probably skipping around a little bit, I think if you don't do this, you virtually render this property worthless.
Don't what?
You've rendered this property virtually worthless.
Yes.
If you do not grant a variance. Because I think no matter what you do with this property, it's gonna require some type of variance because of the drainage issues,
There's
because of
any
the
other way around it.
topography, because of the location. There is gonna be some unique feature that's gonna cause them or someone else to come in for a variance on this property. So that's,
I think it's been proven what the previous owners did.
yeah, 3 previous
Yeah,
owners
right.
that basically walked.
Yeah.
They got into it.
So I think I applaud you for trying to
I,
make it successful.
yeah, yeah. And if, like I said, if you're looking for a unique piece of property in the township, I think we found probably one of the most unique ones that there is. So just
Where
my,
did that, the
pardon?
lady said that her grandparents owned it at one time?
Yes.
Was it 11 acres?
Yes,
Where'd that go? I mean, how did-
probably subdivided out.
Well, it's probably Worthington Road and split it.
Could be,
split it down the
yeah.
middle.
Okay, anyway,
As an aside, I mean, to go to the point, I like the fact that there is a family with 6 kids. I think this may very well become a homestead, and it may be a long-standing property in Genoa Township. So I know those aren't part of our factors, but I do think that's important.
sure. I think
For us
it
to
is too,
consider.
because we are a family-based community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 20 years
Yes.
from now, it'll still look good and be there.
Right.
And they'll probably be gone, but, you know,
Well, I'm hoping I'll be around, maybe.
that's not what I meant.
They should be sitting there.
What's that? Oh, God.
Okay, the next factor that we are to consider is the variance is substantial.
Yeah,
It
It's
is.
33%.
33%.
Right, right. The next factor is the essential character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered, and the adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. We indicated that there may be 1 or 2 houses in fairly close proximity, but you mentioned there are cows in an adjoining area. There's an empty lot and 1 house in particular that's across the street. So I would contend that
And I'll pile on to that a little bit. I know that there are a couple of properties along Worthington Road right in there that are fairly new and they're fairly good quality. They're not your normal subdivision type quality. They're a little better than that. And so that seems to be the way that area is developing, is it's newer, better quality, larger homes. And so I think this probably would conform to the neighborhood.
right. Other comments? No? Okay, the next factor is that variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. Susan indicated that staff did send the application to police and fire, and we received no feedback, which would obviously mean no negative feedback, so,
Police and fire responded, and they did not have any concerns.
okay, good, good. Next factor, the property owner did purchase a property with knowledge of the zoning restriction.
Absolutely.
We have a longstanding policy here that you purchase a property with knowledge, whether you say that you had actual knowledge or not. It's constructive knowledge, it's out there, and you could have known about the zoning restriction.
It's always difficult to have applicants come in here because they, like you, they buy a piece of property, they think everything's fine, and then they find out that, nope, you gotta come see us. And I understand that. The difficulty is the zoning code's out there. Most people either believe the realtor, just hope that on a wing and a prayer that it's okay, or they look at what's around and go, yeah, looks okay, or the builder says, yeah, it should be fine, and then they find out after they're pretty far into the process. So, but that's one of the reasons that we're here too, so.
Okay, the next factor, the property owner's predicament cannot be feasibly obviated through a method other than a variance. I think the board has taken considerable time to view the options. David in particular has explored those and I think has thrown out some great ideas, but in the end, I think we decided that it probably can't be placed anywhere else on the property other than as it's proposed.
I'm not an engineer certainly, and I don't profess to be one, but it certainly looks, based on the testimony given by the applicant, that it is where it is.
The last factor is the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice would be done by granting the variance. Once again, I think the intent is to give us an opportunity to decide whether a variance would help the homeowner and the community both.
Right.
And I do think that after we considered all those factors, that substantial justice would be done by granting the variance.
Okay, I agree. Any other discussion, comments, anyone? No?
In 20 years of home building, I've never seen a more challenging lot. In terms of the ratio to building envelope to lot size, it's crazy.
And in my occupation, I have not run across anything like this. I usually, when I see those, I run the other way.
After it's built, you're all just gonna have to come over and just celebrate with us.
Yeah, there you go. We'll see you in a year and a half for the open house.
I'll say that in July.
Oh, okay. Okay, does anyone want to then craft that into a motion? Because I don't think there's any stipulations or anything. I mean,
No, I'll move to incorporate exhibits A through D, as well as the board's findings pertaining to the review of section 307.06 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution into evidence and to approve the requested variance from section 606.06 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution for BZA case 2021-11. Application received September 29, 2021 to allow for a 25-foot encroachment into the 75-foot eastern front setback on parcel number 31-721-003-001-000, which is 3527 Worthington Road, Galena, Ohio, 43021, zoned rural residential, or RR. This motion is based on the following findings of fact pursuant to section 307.04 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution. One, that such variance or modification will not be contrary to the public interest because it provides for reasonable use of the property and for the factors that we've mentioned earlier in items A through G previously. Two, that owing to special conditions, a little enforcement of this zoning resolution will result in an unnecessary hardship because I think we've identified that the property can't reasonably used for the construction of a residential home unless the variance is granted. 3, that the approval of such variance or modification thereof is consistent with the spirit of the zoning resolution, and substantial justice shall be done thereby, because again, we can place a residential home on the property. We discussed the fact that it has been vacant or undeveloped for many, many years, and this appears to be perhaps the first and best use for the property. Approval of the subject variance is subject to the owner's agreement to the following conditions. Number 1, that all required permits, zoning or otherwise, will be obtained pursuant to section 307.11 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution. The approved variance shall lapse, expire, or be null and void ab initio, meaning at the beginning, if required zoning permits are not obtained within 1 year of the motion of approval. 3, the extensions to this variance may be requested pursuant to sections 307.11A and B of the Genoa Township zoning resolution, as may be amended. And 4, the Board of Zoning Appeals does grant the Genoa Township zoning inspector authority to extend this variance at their discretion, subject to the deadlines established within section 307.11A of the Genoa Township zoning resolution, as it may be amended. And Mark, I think you indicated there are no further conditions?
Right.
Okay.
Unless, no one? No conditions? Okay.
So that's the motion.
And we'll entertain a second.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Dorothy. Any further discussion? Anyone? Okay, then I will call roll. Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Ms. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion carries. Congratulations, and this is probably the easiest thing of your build that's going to happen. Yeah, and so we'll adjourn this portion of the meeting at 7:52. Okay, thank you, good luck. All right, our second case, we'll open the hearing at 7:53, and I'll read the legal notice into the record. And everyone who is here to speak on this matter, please stand and be sworn in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, thank you. Be seated. You're going to wish that you'd gotten sworn in a little while. It's all right. Okay. I say that to everybody because half the time the spouse won't get up, but then about halfway through, they have a comment, and then I just end up swearing them in. So that's fine. We'll come back. Matthew Hellerman and Rachel Hellerman and Lou Ann Gallagly. Yes. Oh my! Did I get it right? Right. Wow. Okay, so I get an A from you and a C from them. Requesting approval of a variance to allow construction of a porch addition to encroach into the required 50-foot front yard setback on lot 601, Division 1 of the Davenport's Bondview subdivision, 5841 South Old 3C Highway, Westerville, Ohio 43082, currently zoned suburban residential, SR, and this is case BZA 2021-12. The legal notice for this hearing was printed and published on October 12, 2021 in the Delaware Gazette and posted at the Genoa Township Hall on October 7, 2021. An attempt to mail notice of this hearing to property owners contiguous to and across the street from the subject property was also made, and we're entering into evidence the following exhibits, A through D, which include the legal notice, the sign-in sheet, application, and the staff report. And we will begin with the staff report.
Thank you, Mark. So this lot houses at 5841 South Old 3C, and it was previously part of a larger piece of property in earlier this year, the property was subdivided into 2 lots. So it is now known as Lot 88-7, and then Davenport's Vaughn View subdivision. So it's a subdivision of the original lot, which was 601.
That's why there's nothing on the auditor's side, I assume, due to the recent subdivision.
I'm assuming that too. I mean, usually everything isn't gone, but it's
See,
like
that's what I
everything's
thought.
gone.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
you can't even hardly do an overhead of the map, and you go on there and there's nothing, really.
yeah, all the history is owners.
Yeah, there's
and
no
everything.
transfer history, there's no nothing on there.
I
When
don't
did
know
it
if it'll come
supposedly
back.
happen?
If you
or
go
not,
on to the bigger plot, you can see a little bit of the transfer hearing, but not, the transfer history, but not on
Right.
on the main one, or on this one.
So, this house is located in a, sorry, that should be suburban residential zoning district, and it has a required 50-foot front setback from the front property line. We received the application for the variance on September the 30th. So I think the existing house does have a little front porch that, and I think from the information that was in the application, it doesn't meet the front setback currently, but the code does allow a front porch that's not roofed to encroach 10 feet into the front setback, but once it's a roof structure, it's then part of the house, and it needs to meet that 50-foot setback.
Looks more like a stoop to me, but that's just.
So the applicant is asking to extend 6 more feet into that 50-foot setback from what the existing house is, and that would be a total of 11.125 feet. Again, we sent the application to the police, fire, and maintenance. Police and fire had no comment or concern. No other responses were received. This afternoon, we had not received any inquiries into this application until this afternoon. And the person who had originally purchased the property and then subsequently subdivided into 2 lots, he called in, and you have before you his email that he sent to you through our office. Other than that, we did not receive any other comments.
Okay. Is this one of those houses, we've seen a few on 3C before, that are built right on the 50-foot line?
Right. Is there a photo of it?
What's it, 45?
Is it at 45?
According to this, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, then it is, okay.
Well,
Because there's a lot of, I know we've had 2 or 3 cases along there where the structure is built right on the 50-foot, and that's why we see a few of those, we've seen a few of those.
since the
past.
house was recently purchased, so they've included a mortgage location survey, and it's
Right.
showing that the house itself is 45 feet, so it's already
So it's already in the easement.
encroaching 5 feet. So they're asking for an additional 6 feet to be a, whatever, 11 point, I think it comes out to 11.125.
The red lines.
So is the 5-foot grandfather then, Susan?
Oh, it is 45, I
Yes.
didn't notice that.
Mm-hmm.
Of the
I
existing?
mean, they can build up to that 45-foot line. And some of that might be because of the, improvements in State Route 3 the last few years
Oh, sure.
have probably changed the width of the right of
They
way.
added
So
curbs
then
and
is
gutters
the-
and widened the street,
So then the variance is 6 foot and not 11 foot, is that correct?
Well, it's still 11 feet plus a little bit into that 50-foot requirement,
Right, but since it's
an additional 6 feet.
additional 6 feet, okay.
Okay.
So we'd be
So-
approving an 11-foot variance or just a 6-foot, 11-foot, right? Because it's 11 feet into that. Yeah, okay.
Either way, you can look at it, 6 additional feet, because they could build across at that 45-foot line, but they're asking to go into it 6 more feet, so.
Okay.
So total of 11, but 6 additional.
I guess my question, let me rephrase it. If they were tearing down the structure and rebuilding, is now, being that the existing building is no longer there, you're asking for 11-foot variance versus a 6-foot variance, is that correct?
If they tore everything down and started from scratch, they'd have to comply with that 50-foot setback.
Okay.
Mr. Hallerman, if you'd like to sit or stand, your choice. Make sure the mic's on there if you would. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Good evening. My name is Matt Hellerman. I'm representing my wife Rachel, my mother-in-law Luann. And we recently purchased the property in question, 5841 South 03C. And we're planning to renovate the existing property. And included in that renovation would be an additional front porch onto the property. As you can see in both the land title agency drawings and the drawing that I prepared in addition for additional measurements for you, the existing property is 45 feet off of the property line. There is also an existing front stoop that you'll see in the actual title property that is 5 foot further away from the existing property. In our detailed design drawings that you have also in your packets, you will see that with the renovation we are planning, it is 6 feet from the existing front of the property forward to add on the front porch. So additional foot outside of what the existing stoop is sitting at today. So those are our initial requirements. We are building this property as our forever home. It will be a multi-generational home with my mother-in-law joining us, living together with me and my family. And I am open.
Doesn't look like you're saving a whole lot of the original house.
Well, the problem with that is the existing garage structure
Right.
is basically unusable. So.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, so the existing structure, we have to completely tear it down. We are keeping the first floor of the existing property. There is a half story above that currently
Yeah, it
today
looks like
that
an old Cape Cod.
ending up to the second story, giving us more livable space for expanding a family.
How much living space are you constructing? Just,
So the livable space will be 3,800 square feet.
okay, because it looks big and I couldn't find it in here.
It is, so the individual dimensions of the square feet are on the very first page of that residential design
they?
document. It's
Oh, you know
very
what it was?
small.
I was looking at them online and I couldn't see them to save my life.
Small, and yeah, I
okay.
apologize for that. But they are on the front page. It lists out each of the individual pieces of the house, the structure. And we work with the designer to position the house to stay within the allotted footprint. And the only expansion to where it currently sits today is that additional 6 feet on the front of the house.
So you're using the same footprint that's there now, you're just gonna build it up.
Yep, the house does pivot a little bit if you see the plans.
I did.
And that's purely because of the property line is kind of diagonal.
Oh, okay.
So you'll see we are allowing ourselves a little more space on the right-hand side, the south side of the actual property to allow for a driveway.
Uh-huh, okay. Any questions, anybody?
Am I correct that you're here today to get a variance to put the porch across the front? Is that right? Is that what?
So we will be applying for permits to do all the construction, but the variance submission today is to get the allowance for us to do that because we're extending outside of the actual setback.
And from the drawing, it will be covered,
Correct.
okay?
Yep.
Susan, if it weren't covered, they wouldn't need a variance, is that right? Isn't that what the,
They could go out 5 more feet.
5 more feet, okay.
So he'd need a variance for the one, he's going 6, he'd need a variance for 1, in theory.
If it weren't covered, but because it's covered, they need the entire variance. Okay.
Anyone else? Dave? You're all so quiet. Did I wear you out on the first one? Thank you.
No problem.
We may or may not get back to you if you wanna have a seat. And I don't see any members of the public, so, I don't see that there's any public comment. We do have the one email that I guess we're gonna enter into the record.
You want me to read it?
I'm sorry, if you would like, you're more than welcome to.
Okay, it's from Thomas Miller, and it was sent today, Tuesday, October 26th, 2021, at 2:21 p.m. to zoning, and it's subject to variance request for 5841 South Old 3C Highway. To whom it may concern, I received a notice by mail from Susan Dorsch regarding a public hearing notice on Tuesday, October 26th, today, when Matthew and Rachel Hillerman are requesting a variance to construct the porch. The flag lot at 5833 South Old 3C Highway that I still own is on the market and would prefer to let the future owners make the decision on the variance, as they need certain dimensions in order to build on that piece of property. My concern is that the variance would cause this piece of property to be less desired to any potential buyers. I am not in favor of approving this variance. Kind regards, Tom Miller, and your cell phone number.
And just so I'm clear, Mr. Hellerman, that was your seller, I think you stated you bought your property from this gentleman also, or no?
That is the gentleman that previously owned the property before us, correct?
That's what I thought. I thought you said that earlier, I think. Okay. Or maybe it was staff, one or the other. Okay. Because he bought the property, subdivided it. You bought one half, and he's still marketing the other half.
Yeah, he subdivided the property probably a few days prior to us actually finishing the purchase of the home.
Okay.
It wasn't completed, and we had to postpone our actual closing date until he completed the subdivision.
Oh, I gotcha.
That was completed, and we purchased the property back in August.
Okay. And Susan, I assume as subdivided, it's legal conforming, the size is legal conforming for zoning? Okay.
The new lot?
Yes, both of them are, well, it doesn't matter, the other one, but this one is legal conforming size. Okay.
Do you know what
Okay.
he means when he says that what they build on their lot affects what the future owner of the other property can build? Because as long as they're within the side and the rear setbacks on their lot, I don't see how it would affect any future property owner.
I couldn't speak for him.
Okay. I mean, from a zoning perspective, it doesn't impact the other property owner if we grant a front variance.
Well, if somebody purchases the new lot, they would be held to that
That's
50-foot setback also.
If I may speak,
Oh, sure. If you don't mind coming up to the microphone, just because we're being recorded.
No
Thank you.
problem. Just so you are aware, the property actually that he's talking about, the flag-shaped property, the front portion of the actual property is not zoned for a house currently today. The back portion of the property that is behind ours is the only portion that's actually zoned for a residential property.
Right.
So there would be a driveway that would be allotted up that skinny piece of land all the way to the back, just for clarity.
It's a flag lot.
Right. We stopped doing those.
So, am I understanding the letter correctly, that he's pretty much saying about the total build, not just the variance?
I don't know, well, I don't take that, I don't take it like that, but what I take it is that, the way I take it is that, please don't let him put a porch on the house, because it could affect my property.
Yeah, but if he's building the house,
Sure.
why wouldn't he be questioning the whole house versus just?
Well, I don't think he can, because it's, to build the house, doesn't require the variance. The only thing that
Right.
requires the variance is the porch. And
Yeah.
frankly, from my, since apparently we're in discussion now, from my perspective, it only improves the property, because as opposed to, I mean, you can see the little Cape Cod house that's on it right now. If you stick that, you know, do that whole house like he's gonna do, 3,800 square feet worth of it, and then you just have that flat front with no porch, I think that's what impacts the neighborhood as opposed to putting a
Well, that's
6-foot
what
porch
I'm
on the
questioning.
thing.
I'm not questioning the porch, I'm just questioning the whole house
If
in
it,
general.
if it, I mean, sorry,
Once you
I'm gonna
build
put
the
it
house,
this,
you
if
might
it
as well
fits,
put
it
the
ships.
porch. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's within the zoning guidelines, is my understanding, and staff can correct me. Then he can build 4,800 square feet if he wants to. And we've got a few of those around too. And that's, and really that kind of drills down on my opinion on this application anyway, is that I think not to have the porch on that structure is an under improvement, because this guy, this applicant is spending a lot of money to do this improvement. And I think it only improves that road, and that road actually is only getting better. And I think it's important that we continue to encourage the property owners along there, because that 3C highway for a long time wasn't all that great looking. And I think what he is proposing to do will only improve the overall neighborhood, in my opinion. And I appreciate the fact that he intends to stay for an extended period. It's not we're gonna build it and move. So I'd be a little concerned. I understand the circumstances. I'm a little concerned that the actual square footage of the house is a little bit of an over improvement for right along there, but that's his decision to make. And that's kind of my 2 cents on the application, so you guys can go from there.
Where's, in proportion of what I'm looking at here, where is that flag lot? Which side?
North, like if you're looking at it, it's gonna be to the left.
Joe's gonna pull it up for you.
Oh, there you go. That was, this one, yeah.
Got it.
I had the hardest time with
I
this
see.
one.
Okay, I got it now. Mm-hmm.
And it's right across from the school right there, too.
So there, okay. It really is a flag.
It is. So somebody is gonna build probably right about where that arrow is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like I said, in my opinion, putting a porch on that house, A, improves it, and B, has no impact on that property, because that house is gonna be behind him.
Right, exactly. That's the only place they could put it.
I mean,
It's like
for
gonna get a-
practical purposes.
They
you know.
have to get a driveway in and out there, so that's.
Yeah, you're gonna get a driveway and that's it.
Yeah,
So, on the flag part, or on the flagpole.
that
So.
helps to see that.
Anyone? No?
My only comment is to the email. I'm a little uncomfortable with Mr. Miller trying to speak for somebody that doesn't exist. They're not a real party in interest today.
I would agree.
They may have no objection, we have no idea, so I've discounted the merit of the email because of that.
I was disappointed that he sells the property to this gentleman and then the gentleman tries to go get a variance to improve his property and then he.
Then complains.
And then he complains about, yeah, thank you. Good way to put it.
Right.
I
I'm with
agree.
you. I'm with you.
Okay, Dave, anything?
I'm good. It's pretty
Okay.
straightforward.
Somebody want to go through Duncan versus Middlefield?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
The board reviewed section 307, am I reading the right one? Page
6?
The board reviewed section 307.06 of the zoning resolution reflecting Duncan versus Middlefield as it pertains to the area variance requested from section 806.05 to allow for an 11.5-foot encroachment into a 50-foot front setback in a suburban residential zoning district as follows. The property in question would yield a reasonable return, and there can be beneficial use of the property without the variance.
Okay, I would agree. I mean, the alternative is not to build.
Right.
Not to build or build a different configuration associated with the building, or
Right.
build without the porch,
Right.
absolutely. The variance I would consider is substantial. I'm
Are we gonna call that, what, 20%?
23% it comes out to. The essential character of the neighborhood would not be substantially altered, and the adjoining properties would not suffer a substantial detriment as a result to the variance.
Right, and I think that that's what this email is attempting to tell us, but I don't agree, you know, I don't agree with the premise of that email at all.
The variance would not adversely affect the delivery of governmental services. And Susan, I don't know, did the fire marshal indicate anything on? There was no comments from police or fire?
Police and fire both responded, and neither had any comments or
comments.
concerns.
The property owner did purchase the property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions. The property owner's predicament, I would say, can be feasibly obviated through a method other than the variance.
Sure.
Simply by not building it.
The spirit intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice would be done by granting the variance.
I think it would, because for practical purposes, for aesthetics, you know, taking into consideration, if he was gonna leave the structure there, that's the existing structure, it might be a discussion point, but based on what he's doing, what he's building, his proposal, I think this adds to the overall appearance, aesthetics, and I think it improves the appearance of the neighborhood. So, I think that granting the variance is, I think that the zoning requirement, substantial justice is done by granting the variance. Okay, somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Dave Boone makes a motion. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
Well, I gotta read through this.
Okay, go ahead.
Dave Boone moves to incorporate exhibits, well, A through D, was it A through D?
E,
E.
with the email, I think the email becomes E.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right. You're exactly right.
Exhibits A through E, as well as the board's findings pertaining to the review of section 307.06 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution into evidence and to approve the requested variance from section 806.05 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution for BZA 2021-12. Application received September 30th, 2021 to allow for I'm going to say 11.5 foot, which is 23% foot encroachment into a 50-foot front setback on property known as parcel number 31731101007001, which is 5841 South Old 3C Highway, Westerville, Ohio 43082, zoned as suburban residential SR. The motion is based on the following findings of fact pursuant to section 30704. Is that 30704 or 30706? 404. Pursuant to section 307.04 of Genoa Township's zoning resolution. The such variance or modification will not be contrary to the public interest because the intent of the porch would improve the aesthetics
Sure.
of
Yes.
the neighborhood and the house in itself. That owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the zoning resolution will result in an unnecessary hardship because I would say that the variance, if not granted, the porch, the house would look missing something if the porch was not.
I think if you don't allow that porch to be built, it becomes an under improvement then.
Yeah.
Because you've got this massive
Seems like it's
structure.
missing something.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why I call it an under improvement.
And the benefit to the house, I think, substantially outweighs any possible detriment to the community of the area.
I would agree.
That the approval of such a variance or modification thereof inconsistent with the spirit and zoning resolution and substantial justice shall be done thereby because just as an improvement to the property of the new house and the porch associated with the house that's being constructed. Approval of the subject variance is subject to the owner's agreement to the following conditions. Incorporate any of the board wishes to apply. All required permits, zoning, and otherwise be obtained. Pursuant to section 307.11 of the Genoa Township zoning resolution, the approved variance shall lapse, expire, and be null and void ab initio if required zoning permits are not obtained within 1 year of this motion of approval. Extensions to this variance may be requested pursuant to sections 307.11A and B of Genoa Township zoning resolution as may be amended. The Board of Zoning Appeals does grant the Genoa Township Inspector authority to extend this variance at their discretion, subject to the deadlines established within the section 307.11.A of the Genoa Township zoning resolution and may be amended.
Thank you, Mr. Boone.
Are there any other conditions?
I think so. No?
And again, I'll second the motion.
Okay, Mr. Phillips seconds. Any further discussion on the application? Then I will call the roll. Mr. Boone?
Yes.
Ms. Driscoll?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Hanson?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion has carried. And that concludes this at 8:24. That concludes this hearing. All right. We have one item of other business that's not going to take long. The other business was revision of the rules of procedure, which I will tell you that I have not had an opportunity to get with staff to work on that, which I will try and do next month. So that is the only thing that's remaining from last month. And at this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ms. Driscoll moves. Second by Mr. Hanson. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are